Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises. Hey everyone, it's the Wolf. Today on the show we have Greg Breitbart, who is the CEO of BODY20. While he didn't found the company, he did acquire it early on in its infancy, and it actually started in South Africa. But prior to Greg getting into BODY20, he was a co-founder of an electricity company that ended up getting acquired for over $100 million. This is a fascinating journey of Greg's entrepreneurial life and how he found himself from running an electricity company to now being the CEO and taking over a boutique fitness franchise that has over 180 locations being built around the country right now. I think you're going to enjoy this.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
Like you've clearly obviously had an interesting journey into franchising, and we were just talking off air about it started with electricity / power company. So do you want to maybe just give us a heads up of when that started and what that business was all about?
Sure, I'd love to, and just thanks for having me on. Excited to be here. So I had an interesting journey to franchising. I'm in the grand scheme of things, somewhat of a rookie, I guess. Got involved in 2019 with BODY20. But before that, I was actually in, I think we'll probably get into what BODY20 does. It's a workout that uses electricity, so somewhat unique. But actually, I started my career, ironically, in the electricity industry. So before that, kind of bounced around mostly in real estate. But in 2009, I was 25 at the time. My father had called me a couple months before this, and his whole career had been in the commodities industry, and he had retired when I was in college. So at this point, he was retired for like 7 years. So that was kind of my adult life. It's just, he's retired, living it up. And he called me one day, 2008, 2009, market crashed. He had a lot of money in the market, a lot of money in real estate. And, I remember the call so vividly. He's like, I am very unretired. And so, scary moment for him, but also just scary for me as his son. And so he'd been working for himself, had an incredible career in the commodities industry, oil and gas, and had been working for himself, built an amazing company before that, and realized he's going to have kind of a second act in his life and career. And he hadn't worked for someone in a long time, so it was naturally going to be entrepreneurial. And pretty soon after that, we just said together, well, let's start a company. Let's do something. We'll figure this out together. And he still had some money, so that was good. And in the grand scheme of things, a pretty good amount of capital, but for him and the way he was used to living, it wasn't going to last, certainly through retirement. And so we found this industry, which was very nascent, at the time, and in Connecticut, at least it was, and in other parts of the country is much more robust, which is retail electricity and natural gas. So in 17 states, maybe more now, the energy markets, have competition. So you don't have to buy your electricity from the utility. It still gets delivered by the utility through their wires, pipes, and poles. They most of the time still bill for it, but you can choose where it actually comes from, the supplier. So you could do that.
So you're like a broker almost of sorts? So, because since you're not actually owning the energy, are you kind of just coming in and...
So there are brokers in this space, but we actually were a supplier. So we actually did own it. We didn't own the generation. Okay. We would buy it from the generators. There's obviously a huge marketplace for this. We would buy it from the generators, and then essentially resell it to the end consumer. And people switch, sometimes to save money. Sometimes they want 100% renewable. Sometimes they want to lock in a price for, multiple years, things like that. And so that industry was just getting started in Connecticut. It was not what he did in his past, but it was in the commodities industry. And so he had a lot of connections, and we just, he always says, which I think was very apropos with our experience there, was, we just took one step towards it, and it took one step towards us. Just from the start, it just always felt like it was kind of meant to be. And we worked hard. We did a lot of good things, but we kind of had the wind at our back and got in the right industry at the right time. And so we started this company, North American Powers, myself, my father, and two other partners. Started it in my apartment building in a sublet in a law office on the retail level. And just as I said, right industry, right time. We ended up, figuring out who's going to do what. I was 25 at the time. I had a little bit of experience. Obviously, you can't have much experience at 25. I had a little bit of experience in marketing and sales. And so I was, naturally, I'm the CMO. I'm the chief marketing officer, just because I know a little more than everyone else. And so I was responsible there for, coming up with, the name, the brand, and really how we were going to acquire customers and how we were going to build revenue. And we did a lot of clever things, and right place at the right time. But we ended up bringing in 100,000 customers in our first year. Did 20,
and that's homeowners.
Homeowners, yeah. It was residential. You could serve residential or commercial, but we focused on residential, and ended up doing 23 million in revenue in our first 6 months and 125 million in our first 12 months. So pretty astronomical, just kind of rocket ship. And so for me, 25 years old, it was an amazing opportunity, and we were just kind of along for the ride right from the start, and very exciting.
Well, okay. Yeah. Let's dive into this a bit. I'm going to guess most people listening to this have no idea, like, the unit economics of the energy business. I sure as hell don't. And so we're talking about literally, you were the company where I go to cook eggs on my stovetop. The gas, like, you're the one supplying me the natural gas, and I guess the electricity, just so when I want to watch TV, that my TV turns on, right? Like, it's that. Let's just start at the basic level there.
It is, yeah. It's so similar to telecom. I haven't told this story in a while, actually. This is fun. Similar to telecom. You had one company that owned, the wires, the pipes, the poles, the billing, everything, and so it was a monopoly essentially, and they had complete pricing power, and they essentially broke up. Ma Bell, way back in the day, they broke that up, and they deregulated the telecom space. And that's where you have, you got Sprint and MCI and all that. And all of a sudden, long distance and all these things started to come down in price. And now we don't even think about, cost per minute for long distance calls and things like that, because the competition drove down price and also created a lot of innovation, obviously the cellular industry and smartphones and all of that. So it was a really successful deregulation. The airlines went through the same thing. A long time ago. And so it's the same concept with electricity and gas, where you had, back in the day, or still in some states, you have this. You have one company that owns the generation, they own the transmission lines, and they own the local distribution. They have a complete monopoly. And so you really have no choice. You can't leave them. And so how do you create competition? Obviously, you don't want like 10 power companies putting power lines down the street. So you're not going to create competition on the delivery side. You don't want multiple transmission lines. So you're not going to have, competition there. Where you can have competition is on the generation and on the supply of the power, and how it's sourced. And so that's essentially what they deregulated, and they forced the utilities to sell their power plants, and get out of that business. So they essentially didn't care. Okay. They didn't care who was delivering it. If you didn't switch to somebody else, they'll supply you on kind of standard service. But if you switch to somebody else, they actually build for us, and they'll essentially take our power, deliver it to the local customer. And in the case of most of the states we're in, they'd actually do the billing as well. It's a very unique industry. Wow. I haven't talked about it in a long time.
Yeah. Well, niche businesses are my favorite. All right. So, I have no idea, like, margins. Like you said, you did 23 million in the first 6 months. Is it like groceries where it's like 2% profits, or,
Well,
because it's the definition of a commodity business that you're in.
Sure. Yeah. So we were serving residential customers. If you can imagine your electric bill, I think you live in Texas. It sounds like, you probably have a bigger bill than the average consumer, especially in the summers. About, depending on the state, 1/2 to 2/3 of your bill is the supply. So you're charged separately for the supply cost and the delivery cost. And so all of that revenue on the supply costs would have been our revenue. So if we were serving 100,000 customers, that's 100,000 customers who are essentially paying 2/3 of their electric bill that's going to us. Now the margins on that, would change, dramatically, depending on, seasonality, literally change by the minute, in the electricity markets. So it really varied, but it was a pretty, it was a lucrative, lucrative industry. And from a revenue standpoint, with the growth we had in the, in households, the revenue could grow really, really quickly. And over the 7 years, we ended up bringing in over 1 million customers and had about 300,000 when we sold.
Holy crap! And I assume your father's experience with commodities trading, maybe you had some like really high level access to pricing and forecasting, and I don't know if you can lock in deals like to prevent risk against fluctuations. Like, was that part of your advantage?
It was, yeah, and it was all part of it. It's so funny thinking back on this company, but it was, the commodity industry in general is very volatile. The electricity industry is the most volatile commodity. So it literally changes, minute to minute. So you always want to be marrying up. If I'm guaranteeing a customer's price for 12 months, I need to be hedging for that. I need to buy that. I either need to buy it in advance, or I need to hedge in a way that I can know that I can deliver on that price to the consumer. And so that's what we did. But even with that, you can only hedge, getting technical, but you can only hedge for 100%. So you're expected to use this much power this summer. You're our customer. I bought that for you. I've hedged that. But now it's a heat wave in Texas. And so now all of a sudden you're actually using 30-40% more. So we don't have that extra power because it would have been irresponsible to buy it because we couldn't predict it. So now we have to go into the real-time market, which is priced by the minute. And we have to go in and we have to buy all that extra power that you're using. We have to buy that as it's happening. And basic supply and demand, the way that market works is that price can go through the roof sometimes when, as you've experienced less in Austin, but more outside of Austin and Texas, you can just have some wild swings, in price. So highly volatile, one of the things, kind of parts of that story that got me into franchising and got me involved with BODY20, was kind of the stress that I lived with over those 7 years at North American Power, building that business. One, because it was so volatile. There was actually a point during the polar vortex in 2014. There was a stretch in January where we lost over $1 million a day, 7 days in a row, and had no idea if it would stop. It was this weird weather event, may not have affected you as much in Texas, but in the Northeast, it was, just frigidly cold. And we had hedged and done everything we're supposed to do, but we didn't have enough power because people were using more, and prices through the roof, and literally losing $1 million a day, which is, hard to even fathom. And just didn't know if we were going to make it. So I remember having a conversation with my father where I think we both ended it with, "I love you, Father. I love you, son." Acknowledging that this ride might be over. But fortunately, it's funny, that industry, you're almost like a farmer. The sun came back out and the weather got better, and we stopped losing that money, and we made it through, which was great. And so that was good. But yeah, it was a very incredible opportunity for me to be given that chance, 25 years old, so I definitely acknowledge that. But I, put everything into it, and, because of the volatility of the industry, even though we were kind of a rocket ship, we still almost lost it all at multiple points. Damn. That combined with my father put his last penny into the business, and we actually borrowed $1 million from my mother, his ex-wife, who is very, very kind and generous to loan it back to him. And so for me, I had, really my whole family's, kind of future on the line.
Yeah.
For most of the time we had that business, including in moments where we thought we might lose it all. And I was responsible for, revenue, building the business and making sure that we grew and made money. And so incredible opportunity, but it just kind of took its toll. And we ended up selling the company 7 years after we started it in 2017. To a large public company at the time called Calpine, Texas-based as well in Houston. And I stayed on as part of the deal as I had to stay on, and my team stayed on, which was good. But a couple years into that, I just selling your company to somebody else, and it's a very uncomfortable when you start something, you sell it to somebody else and they're in charge and you're not in charge anymore. It's very uncomfortable. I equate it to being awake for your own surgery. It's not fun to watch, and sometimes you have to actually, do the not fun stuff yourself. And so that was taking a toll too. And I just kind of knew it was time to go. And I had some incentives to stay, so that was kind of keeping me there. And then the company actually went private. They got bought by a big PE firm, took private, and my incentives got accelerated. So I think I lasted like one day after the stock options, and just said, I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna move on. And one of the main motivations I had for kind of getting out and moving on was that I had a 1-year non-compete in that industry, and I thought I was going to stay in the electricity industry. And so I'm looking at this 1-year non-compete as somewhat of a hindrance, because I want to do something else. But it also gave me time to figure out what that was going to be. And most importantly, I had over the 7 years developed a lot of like what I would describe as workplace injuries, from sitting all day, from the stress, just like hunched over, bad posture, drinking too much. I hate to say it because I'm in the fitness industry now. I was smoking cigarettes at the time, just doing all the bad stuff, but then also like running 500 miles a year too. And, so it was just like, weekend warrior type mode. And it caught up to me about halfway through the company, initially with some really bad low back issues. And then those same issues, which kind of stemmed from a weak core and some imbalances in my core, turned into tennis elbow in my right arm. I eventually got it in my left arm because I started playing left-handed. So I got tennis elbow in both arms. I got Achilles tendonitis in both ankles, and I got plantar fasciitis in both feet, all within like a 2 to 3 year period. And so everything in life is great. I've set my family up for life. My father's retired, sailed off into the sunset in, South Florida. And, so life is good, but I feel like shit, and my friends, I was like 32 at the time. My friends are making fun of me like I'm a 80-year-old man. So I just said, I'm going to take a year off. I can't work in this industry anyways. And I'm just going to literally go to physical therapy every day until I fix these issues. And I even knew what was wrong with me. I just didn't have the time because I was so busy to like really commit to it in PT. And so I was just like, all right, year off, I'm going to go to PT every day. I don't care if I have to pay out of pocket. I'm not going to live like this. And that's kind of the first kind of step in me getting connected into franchising and into BODY20.
Cool. I mean, dude, that's a wild story. And I mean, it's a public transaction. Am I right? I'm on Google. It's saying the acquisition was like 111 million. Is that in the realms of what the deal?
If it's public, then yeah, that sounds
okay.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's first result in Google. North American Power acquired by Houston-based Calpine. Yeah. So wow. All right. So big exit. That's pretty sick. And yeah, man. I mean, it's funny, like when you're talking about just the health woes. I mean, thankfully, it's not like wasn't like on the scale of what can happen health wise. It wasn't super serious, but there's that quote of like, a healthy man has 1,000 wishes, a sick man only has one. So yeah, it just kind of goes to show you, right? Like if you're not physically well, I mean, nothing else matters. Even if you are set for life financially, it's like I'm miserable all the time.
Exactly. And it could have been so much worse, of course, but nagging, anyone that has nagging injuries and those types of things, that it can just, it just impacts every day, and it makes the
quality
makes everything
of life
a little bittersweet.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, all right. So you sell in 2017, you take that year off to get your fitness back. Can you kind of maybe walk us through, I guess, that year off to you discover BODY20? I don't want to spoil it for listeners, but Greg, you didn't found it, but you didn't found it, meaning starting the company, but you did discover BODY20 in its infancy and ended up buying it from the founder. So yeah, you want to just walk us through how you get from getting your health back to being the CEO of an emerging franchise.
Sure. I like that play on words. I'm not the founder, but I did find it.
Yeah.
So later on. So I stopped, one of the best and worst days of my life, last day of work at that company, it was just bittersweet, but I was also kind of happy to take some time off. And
Sure.
And so I left. I think we went on a vacation the first couple of weeks, did like the whole Pacific Coast Highway, which was awesome.
Sick.
Up to Vancouver. Yeah, really fun. And so I was just, really loving life. I would say probably one of the happiest months of my life. It was worth it. Any founders, listening to this, or business owners, there's so many ups and downs. That feeling when you sell your business, I mean, there's just nothing better. And it's not even the money. It's just the satisfaction. And just the pot of gold, but not the gold, it's the rainbow,
Yeah.
and so loving life. But what happened very quickly was, I just started feeling like, less smart. Like, it's like when you stop working and so that wasn't good. And I didn't last long just enjoying the time off. I immediately started thinking, what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life?
You weren't golfing every day and you got bored. And
there's a quote. Have you seen the show Succession?
Yeah, I love Succession. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a quote on there, about, I forgot the character's name, but they're talking about money, and I think it was like an inheritance, and it was a certain amount of money. I won't say the amount. And he goes, that's the worst amount of money to have.
Oh yeah. It was 5 million. Yeah. I remember this. Yeah. I'm a junkie of Succession.
It's not enough to retire, but but you're also not going to be as motivated, so there's a little bit of that going on too. Like, what am I going to do? But I could also do nothing for a long time.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But so around that time, I started going to PT, went to a new hospital for special surgery. Great hospital that had great PT program. And I went in there, and, at this point I knew exactly what had happened to me, and which was my glute. But for some reason, my glute medius on my right side just kind of stopped working. I lost that kind of mind muscle connection to my glute medius, and your glute medius is essentially like your side of your butt, your butt,
okay.
And it holds your hips in, so if you have one that's not activating and not working, your hips kind of jut out. And what happens with that is when your hip juts out like that, it actually makes your hips uneven, which makes one leg artificially longer than the other. And so I was running a lot. And if one leg's longer than the other, if you're moving a lot, running, whatever it is, your body it doesn't take long for your body to say, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the initial issues started, and actually how each of the other industries, kind of came to be. The tennis elbow and all that all stemmed from that kind of core issue. And I knew what it was. And they'd always give you, okay, you need to isolate the muscle and, and we need to re-strengthen it. But it was so far disconnected from my brain that I literally could not do it. And so every time I tried to do isolation exercises, I'd use other muscles, and like my IT bands would tighten up, and I'd get like sciatica and stuff like that. And, so it was just, that was my experience up until that point. So I go to the new PT and I tell them, this is what's wrong with me. They're like, yep, that sounds about right. And they said, we're actually doing this new thing. We think it could be really helpful. And so they ended up hooking me up to, they're putting a bunch of acupuncture needles in my glute medius, and then hooking those up to electric stimulation. So it was like really deep in there. And they said, all right, you're just going to lay here for 10 minutes. We're going to contract your muscle. And what it's going to do is it's going to start retraining your brain that muscle's there. It's going to start reminding your brain, because we're going to contract it directly, that muscle's still there. And then after we do this, then we're going to do those same isolation exercises you've been doing. And we're going to see if you can contract it yourself and you can use it yourself. And so sure enough, 10 minutes, it's contracting, ba-bum. And after that, I go do the same exercise I've been doing. I can feel it for the first time. And so I do that. I go home, wake up the next day. It's like super, super sore, which is good. And I think I did, maybe went twice before I had no issue. I had no back pain, and I've been living with it for like 2 years. So this was so life-changing for me, this experience, and the timing and the serendipity of kind of what happened next is really just weird. But my father, we sold the business. He moved to Florida, retired, hopefully for good this time, and
Yeah.
bought a yacht and living life, well. And he calls me and he says, "Greg, I just went and I did this workout." And he was 68 years old at the time, hates working out. It's not his thing. So it's a funny call to get from him. And he goes, "And it's amazing. I'm thinking about investing. You wear this full body suit and it's got electrodes and it's 20 minutes and it's amazing. And I think we should invest in this." And normally, I'm very yin and yang with him because he's such an amazing visionary, but often isn't in the details, and so I was the one that kind of had to figure out the details. And so usually, I'm more skeptical in these situations, or more focused on, kind of the due diligence side, where he just saw it and wanted to do it. So I'd normally, maybe be like trying to talk him off the ledge or slow him down. But I had just literally had this experience, and I told him, I said, "Dad," I was like, "It's so weird because I literally just had this life-changing experience with not that, but electric stim and physical therapy." So I was like, "I'm not going to tell you not to do it." And that's what happened. He ended up, he had gone to the first BODY20 location. I guess a good time to introduce BODY20 here. BODY20 is a boutique fitness franchise. We do a 20-minute workout with personal trainer. And what's really unique and awesome about it is that personal trainer and the client is wearing a full body electro-muscle stimulation suit. So while they're doing that workout, it's contracting directly all their major muscles. And you're essentially doing a 20-minute workout, all isometric movements, basic movements, low impact, no weights, no resistance. You're essentially fighting your own muscle contraction that we're creating artificially. And, we always say, we always train our franchisees and team, don't even talk about it too much. Just tell someone, come in for a free demo. You have to kind of feel it to understand. So I'd say that now, but, virtually most people can't do that yet. But it is just absolutely incredible to work out. It's you'd be shocked, how gassed you are at the end of just 20 minutes.
That's fascinating.
So he tries this workout. The first location in the United States was in Wilton Manors, which is in Fort Lauderdale. Loves it. Networks into the U.S. partner, Chris Pena, and then networks in, or kind of connects through that to the original kind of founding partner in South Africa, which is actually where the company was started, and ends up partnering with them. And then at that point, as I mentioned, he's retired at this point. And so it's kind of full court press now on me to get involved, and it fit really what I was looking for. I'd gotten out of that industry. Further I got away from it, the less interested I was in going back in. I really wanted to do something that I had a personal connection to and a personal passion for. And I had been thinking about it, but for a while, there's got to be this, space between I just got out of physical therapy, but I'm not ready to go do CrossFit yet. And I think there's this big gap there of low impact, but effective workouts, and that, this just kind of fell into our lap, and he saw it and I saw it, because of my experience, and we, I ended up getting involved and ultimately, kind of long story short, yada, yada, yada. We ended up buying out the original South African founders. And partnering with their U.S. partner, Chris Pena, to, take what they had, which at that point was just a kind of their single corporate location and a couple franchise units, and start turning it into what we have today, which we kind of call BODY20 2.0 because, we ended up changing really almost all of it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a fascinating story. So without getting into the specifics of the details, but so you guys, you're not a master franchisee. You actually bought out. So the South African person or entity, they're gone because you guys acquired them fully, and now BODY20 is fully based out of the U.S.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So they still have a BODY20 in South Africa. They have about 50 units, I think, there.
Okay.
Which is really good. That's a lot, in South Africa, just demographically. And, so I think that business does quite well there. But the BODY20 here today, we ended up buying them out fully, separating entirely. So it's not a master or licensee licensor situation. We we own the IP and the brand, and really we ended up changing everything anyways. So it was a unique story. We have a very unique kind of founding story. I think we have like almost 3 founders. We have the original founder in South Africa that started it in his garage, which is awesome. We've got our US founder, which is Chris Pena and his wife, Kenzie, who opened the first BODY20 here and helped start franchising the brand. And then, I'm not the founder, I'm the one that founded, I guess, who's come in and I think, helped take it from kind of where it was to where it is today. And, it was an interesting experience because for me, it was my first time buying a business. It was my first time being a CEO. It was my first time in franchising, my first time in fitness. I knew nothing about electric muscle stimulation. So really it was pretty daunting, but what we thought we had a business that was really kind of ready to go and ready to scale. And, after the acquisition, when I came in and I started kind of digging in more and more, we just realized there was a lot more work here than we initially thought. And it was pretty terrifying, to be honest, because, we just weren't there on the unit economics standpoint. We had some franchisees at the time that were questionable. And I had literally just read like all the franchising books on, how to franchise a business and all this. And like everyone says, number 1, unit economics, number 2, make sure you have the right franchisees. And so like, I'm going through our bit. I'm like, okay, we screwed that one up. I'm like, oh boy, So it was, a moment of terror. And, I think there's a great quote in Shawshank Redemption, you can get busy living or get busy dying. And, we kind of realized, oh shit, this got a long way to go. And, we got a lot of work ahead of us, but we don't have a choice, and I say that to our franchisees every training we do. I said, if there was a magic red button in business and you could just hit that button and it would all go away, just disappear. You didn't do it. You're out, and never happened. No business would ever get past like a year, at some point, you're going to hit that button and eject, but that's not what owning a business is. You don't have that choice, and thank God we didn't have that choice. Cause to be honest, there was times where I wanted to hit the button, and I'm sure, for everyone listening to this, if you're a franchisee, there's a moment where you either have, or you will want to hit that button. And it's a good thing you don't, because most of the time it works out and works out really well. So we didn't have that button, the magic button. So we had to figure it out. And we just kind of put a plan in place between myself and my partner, Chris. And, he got empowered when I came in, cause the original founder wasn't there. And he had a lot of ideas on what we needed to do, which was good, cause I had no idea what I was doing. And I just said, I was like, you better know what you're doing, cause I'm going to trust you here. And so he had some great ideas on things we could do to improve, the performance in the units, which was really most critical. And for me, my experience was it was in scaling a business, and so I knew I could do that, but we weren't there yet. So we needed to get there first. And so I focused on something we always wanted to do when we bought the brand, or we knew we were going to do, which is, the brand was created in South Africa, probably on a shoestring, did a great job, but, it was created for South Africa, and also was just, created on a budget, and, I come from a world where, you invest heavily in brand, and so we did that. We ended up partnering with an awesome agency in New York City, Pearl Fisher. They actually just did McDonald's new packaging. They had an awesome program for kind of early stage companies. They really wanted their fitness clients. So they gave us a really good deal. And we worked with them to rebrand. So we needed a brand that fit the consumer more, in our workout, it's 20 minutes a week, it's amazing, but the reality of it is it's in a retail setting, like an Orange Theory, like a Soul Cycle, it's boutique fitness. It's with a personal trainer, and we use an expensive, it's 1-to-1, okay, so and we use an expensive medical device. Yeah. So we knew our value is incredible. Your personal training sessions are between $37 and I think $50 a session. So less than really any personal training out there, and more effective, but it's still not inexpensive. It's not a $20 membership. So we know that the consumer is is expecting a lot. And the boutique fitness market in the United States, when we looked at it, it was very, it was much more established than around the world. And the consumer, expectation is higher, especially with things like SoulCycle and Cycle Bar and Rumble and all these really cool experiential brands. We knew we needed the brand to fit the consumer. And so worked with Pearl Fisher to rebrand the business. They did a fantastic job. And then partnered with a really incredible architecture firm, Bright Architecture, who actually helped create Rumble Boxing, which is a brand that we really liked, to take that brand and make it come to life. And so all the while I'm doing this part, Chris is working, with the units, trying to improve unit performance, improve sales. We weren't doing pre-sales at the time, which if or for anyone listening that knows boutique fitness, like pre-sale is one of the most important aspects of how this all works. And so we weren't even doing them before that. Chris, and an individual we hired, Matt Maddox, came in and helped us kind of build out our pre-sale program. And so we kind of tackled it from the two angles, which was, we're flying in this airplane and we know it's potentially, I usually say it's going down, but I'm going to be softer. It's not going the right direction. And we're up in the air and we know that we may not be able to save it. We need to make sure we've got another airplane, but we're in the air, so we basically had to fly the plane, try to, save it, and then build our new airplane and hopefully put everyone in it and fly off and take off before we land or crash. And so that's what we did. And so, he worked with the existing franchisees to increase the performance and drive up the unit economics while we basically created a whole new business, new brand, new footprint, completely new experience, new training methodologies, and then literally changed every single system, tool, everything about what we did. And that was all kind of starting to come together in you'll laugh when I say the date, but like January 2020 was where we just were rolling out the brand. Our first pre-sale is, our studio opened bigger than any of our other studios that just did our first pre-sale. And we were like, for the first time, we're like seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And then global pandemic, and it's obviously everyone is impacted, not just us, but it was really bad timing for us, or at least we thought it was, and I think this is a good life lesson of, you really never know what something is until you die, until it's all over. You don't know why something happened or even what the impact long-term is, and for us, when we bought the business, at the time, man, did I wish it was doing better. But I'm actually glad it wasn't, because it forced us to do the things we did. And man, when the pandemic started, I was like, this just can't be, like, we're just getting some momentum, but when I look back on it, of course, I wish the pandemic didn't happen, but it ended up being such a blessing in disguise for us because it gave us, and for anyone at a startup or who's been at a startup, you're always behind. It gave us this opportunity to catch up. We just said, again, we can get busy living, get busy dying. All our locations are closed. We just turned off all our royalties, all our fees. We got no revenue coming in, but we also don't have any phone calls coming in. We helped them with PPP and all those things, but everyone was basically, doing nothing. And so we said, all right, this is a unique opportunity because we've got all day, every day to build the right foundation and to finish all these projects and all these systems and tools and things that we knew we needed to do. And we just set out with a goal that if, and at that point it was an if, because we didn't know if we can reopen or when we can reopen. The one thing we know is that we're going to have a better opportunity for our franchisees when we do. And so we were able to get like 7 key projects, all impacting our franchisees, all, making their businesses easier for them to operate, all across the finish line, during that time, so that when our locations started opening, that summer, a lot of ours were in Florida, which was, helpful for us. When they started reopening, we just started doing better than we ever have, kind of right from the start, and I think we were a little bit benefited for sure because our workouts one-on-one. And so there was a lot of people that weren't willing to go back to group that, would do a one-on-one workout. But it was really the addition of all these systems and tools that made our franchisees' jobs easier, better marketing vendors, and really awesome automated customer review system, and just all sorts of automated texting and messaging and all this stuff. And it was just, it wasn't, the straight line up that that my last business was, but we've really just been growing really steadily since then. And to a point that we got to a point, that next winter where we really felt like, hey, these unit economics and where we're at as a business, the scalability of what we have is really in a great place. And now is really the time to grow again. And we'd actually stopped selling franchises for about a year.
Wow.
Because we just didn't feel like we had something that was worth it. We let in a couple people that had tremendous experience that basically convinced us, but we really, no advertising, no outreach for franchise sales. And we just said, we want to make sure that we're in a really good place before we really, put the gasoline on the fire.
Yeah.
And we hit that point where we just said, we looked at ourselves and we're like, wow, we're really starting to do well here. Franchisees are happy, everything's going in a really good direction, and we think it's time to grow. And so we ended up bringing in another partner to the business, and our chief development officer, Bob McQuillan, who's like a legend in the franchise world. He was at Hand and Stone Massage, helped, grow Hand and Stone from like 20 units to 400. And, just an awesome guy, great partner. And he came in and we paired, an exciting concept, obviously very unique and differentiated that, had strong performance. And we paired it with a legend in the franchise sales space, particularly in the consultant world. And, that combination has kind of led us to where we are today, where, we've got, by the end of this month, we'll have over 20 locations open. We have, I think, about 30 additional leases signed. And our goal is to have, by the end of this year, close to 100 open, either 100 open or 100 open plus lease signed.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do something. And then on top of that, we've got about 180 total in development. So, we didn't grow much for a couple of years. We focused on the foundation, focused on making sure we had, good unit economics, the right team in place, a scalable business and systems. And, and this would be my advice to any franchisor listening, don't try to sell through it all. Make sure you've got, you can catch up really fast when you get it right.
Yeah.
And just make sure you've got the right foundation before you go. And that's what we did. And it's just kind of taken off since. And we're now trying to, grow, internally our team, and scale as fast as we can, because it's a big difference going from opening, 5-6 units a year to 70 or 80. But I think we're making the right decisions and growing the team, accordingly to be able to deliver.
That's fascinating. I mean, it sounds like, I wish more franchisors did it, but, just sometimes emerging franchises, the name of the game seems to be growth. And if you don't have a solid concept that as the foundation, then, you end up hurting yourself in the long run, which it sounds like you realized, okay, this actually isn't ready for growth. Like, we got to tighten things up, get the unit economics right. And it sounds like you also built infrastructure at like a tech level for people operating the business. So, and obviously now you're reaping the rewards for it, which is awesome to hear.
A little of the tortoise and the hare, I guess, but we turned into the hare at the end.
Yeah.
And caught back up. But yeah, it's really kind of exactly what happened. And I think what happens in franchising is that franchising is a finance mechanism, and that's actually one of the best parts about franchising is that, oftentimes you don't need outside financing, because if you're growing at the right pace, you can finance the business, and the right investments through your, franchise sales and development. But what often happens is that, because of that, there isn't another financing source. And so you're forced to just sell franchises, and for us, I think the advantage we had, and just I think was a good decision, was we had capital outside of the business, that we could invest. So we can sell franchises to people that we shouldn't, and sell something at a time where we're still figuring things out too much. Or we can just put our own money in, or in the case of somebody else, maybe outside money. But for us, it was all internal.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We built, we rebranded, did all this stuff, and all that work was on our dime. We had very little royalty at the time, almost no franchise sales, but it was worth it, to do it that way. And it allowed us to kind of make a very conscious decision. When is the time for growth? And I'll say, once we made that decision, we didn't slow it down, and we haven't slowed it down, within reason. And so now we are in the mode of we're going to scale and grow as fast as we can. I do think there's a bit of a speed to market, certainly with what we're doing. You know, we do have competitors. And so that's important. But I think we have a good plan for it. And that the plan ended up being kind of serendipity too, which is when the pandemic happened, we had an office in Boca Raton, Florida, headquarters. We all went home, you know, as everyone did. You know, for me, home was Connecticut. So I actually moved back to Connecticut and we all worked remote.
Yep.
And, you know, got back to a point where we could go back to the office and, you know, we just started thinking about it and like, it was our best year ever. We're crushing it. We're super efficient. And we just kind of said to ourselves, you know, does this even make sense? Like what makes us think that makes sense? You know, like we just had our best year. We're doing great. And, you know, and so the idea is, you know, we'll add an office, a training center, something. We actually got out of our lease, went remote. And then as that was happening, the business started scaling from a development standpoint.
Okay.
And we just had to scale the team, you know? And so what ended up happening is we started hiring not in one place, but we got to hire from around the country.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we needed because of how fast we're scaling, we need like extreme expertise. You know, like we need the best of the best, you know, to do what we're doing. And there's no way that I could have, or that we could have hired the team we have today, like, which I would consider a dream team in franchising. And the experience is really just incredible. If they all either needed to already live in one city or all needed to be relocated to one city. And that is like true 10 years ago when people actually moved for jobs. It's like 100 times more true now because no one wants to move for a job. No one, you know, everyone is realizing you don't have to do that. So it really has allowed us to do what we're doing and to scale at the pace we're scaling because, you know, my head of real estate lives in Santa Barbara. You know, my head of marketing lives in San Francisco.
Yep.
I live in Connecticut. My head of operation lives in Pittsburgh, and he left his last company because they wanted him to move, you know, and he didn't want to move. And so it's just been, for us, it's made it all possible to find this kind of dream team to help us scale, but also been a great opportunity for our you know, key employees and you know, to be able to, you know, to work where they want to work.
No, for sure. I mean, I think remote work's definitely changed the game and like the status quo that companies have to abide by as far as like the requirements for employees. And it's definitely a positive. If you embrace it, it's a positive for both sides. So you're clearly reaping the benefits there. I'm curious though. So for BODY20, just from if I'm a customer, you know, like, you know, I have a gym that I go to. I try to go to 4 or 5 times a week at least. I like to do Orange Theory, which I got into right before I left New York. But, you know, basically, like, is BODY20, is it more for is it for someone trying to lose weight? Is it someone trying to build cardiovascular endurance? Is it strength building? You know, like, where do you see it fitting in for someone who's either in shape or trying to get into shape?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. So we're pretty unique when it comes to that. So when we did our rebranding, you know, rebranding is easier than branding because you actually know about yourself. And so we went to Pearl Fisher and we knew so much about who we were already. We knew who our members were, and they're going to change. You know, there's some selection bias there because of the old brand, but generally we knew who was coming in the door and who was liking it. And what was so unique when we looked at that, which my background is marketing and branding. And so this is like such a no-no. But what was so unique is that our customers were like everybody. You know, they range from like a 25-year-old athlete that was using this for performance gains to a 80-year-old that, you know, needs to build strength but can't lift weights, you know, and can't do traditional fitness but needs to build muscle mass.
Yeah.
And so we kind of realized we can try to, like, you know, get really single focused on like one persona, but really, you know, let's just do branding kind of, you know, no number one, and let's actually build this brand for everybody. And so the tagline for BODY20 is everybody unleashed. And, you know, it really, you know, I don't say that lightly. It really is an incredible workout for anybody. It's an equalizing workout. And how that works essentially is when you go to Orange Theory, you know, or you go to your gym and you're in, let's say you're in good shape, but you're not a professional athlete.
Yeah.
You're going to go and you're going to lift weights. And when you lift those weights, or you go down and do a squat, your body is recruiting, your muscle, your brain is essentially recruiting the muscles. And it is able to recruit, for you as an average person, maybe 35, 40% of your muscle fiber, as an average person. I don't want to call you average, but let's just say
man. I'm
an
the
average
wolf,
person.
baby.
Yeah. So, but then let's say a professional running back goes in and goes to do a squat. He can he's so well conditioned. One, his muscles are bigger, but two, he's so well conditioned that he has the ability to recruit a higher percentage of his muscle fiber. So you can actually use more of it and he can trigger it faster. And so when he goes down, he's recruiting 75% of his muscle fiber. So he's actually doing more work. He can lift more, one, because it's bigger, two, because he's using more of it, and he's actually burning more calories because he's using more of his muscle. And it's the same reason the running back would not be a good marathon runner, because he's just burning too many calories with how big his muscles are and how much of it he's recruiting. And so that's when you do kind of a traditional workout. What happens at BODY20, and our workout is 20 minutes. It's 1 to 2 times a week. That's it. Mostly strength training, but we do cardio as well. And that same squat, you go down to do a squat and the stimulation turns on. It's on 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. But while it's on, you're going down and doing, let's say, 1 or 2 squats. It's recruiting, no matter whether it's you, the professional running back, or an 85-year-old person. It's recruiting 90, 95% of that muscle, because it doesn't matter how well conditioned your brain is. We're going directly to the muscle, sending the same, kind of mirroring the same signals that your brain would send, and it's recruiting it directly. So the same way for me when I had the injury I had where I couldn't get my glute medius to fire, that's essentially my brain had kind of lost that connection. The acupuncture needle with the electric stimulation in my glute medius, it doesn't care what the ability of my brain to recruit it. It can recruit it fully on its own. And so that's essentially what we do. And so over those 20 minutes, you've got 10 minutes of the 20 minutes where you are under tension. Your muscles are being contracted directly by the stimulation, and you're essentially fighting the contraction. So you're going down, doing a squat, coming up, going down, doing a squat, all while it's contracted the entire time, which creates resistance. So let's say you're doing a bicep curl while this is going on. It actually is going to feel like you have weights in your hands. And the reason it's equalizing the workout is that if you are jacked, and you've got huge biceps, and then next to you is a 70-year-old woman or man that does not have a lot of muscle fiber, maybe a little overweight too, that person next to you, you might be on the exact same settings, doing the exact same workout, the exact same everything, and both exhausted by the end of it, both struggling, because it's essentially using your own muscle for resistance.
Yeah.
So the bigger your muscles are, and actually the less body fat covering them, the more you're going to struggle, you know? And so we can take a professional athlete, put him on the same settings as his grandmother, do the exact same workout, and he's going to be gassed. He's going to be sweating. He's going to be sore the next day. And so is his grandmother or grandfather training next to him. And so it's just this incredible equalizing workout. It's been used for many years. The industry started in Europe, in Germany. Over 10% of all fitness facilities are electric muscle stimulation studios. It's like Pilates there. So it's really just come to the United States in the last few years because the devices just got FDA clearance. And, it's incredible. Our customers, they love it. We measure, across all our studios individually, net promoter scores, they're through the roof.
Yeah.
Just really incredible stories and fitness stories. The most common one is we build lean muscle mass. That is the one that is almost, I don't want to overspeak here, but that's the one we're going to see the most often.
Gotcha.
We do, every time you come into a BODY20, you get on an in-body device, which is a bioimpedance tool that measures body composition. So we're tracking all of this, which is important, so that you're seeing the results that you're getting. That's the thing we're going to see the most of, which is you're going to start building your lean muscle mass, which is going to help your body composition. so that the fitness story is really exciting. But the thing that excites me the most, and I always have to be cautious with kind of how I talk about this, is that we have non-fitness stories too, because the technology we use, originally is from physical therapy, and we don't train injured people. We don't fix injuries, so I have to say that, but there's some therapeutic benefits of electric stimulation on the body and fixing muscle imbalances. For me, in my personal issues, it was very helpful. And those stories for me as a CEO, or for our franchisees as business owners that see their customers every day, or, most of them are semi-absentee, but, they know their customers. It's such a rewarding business because we've got all those great fitness stories, gaining muscle, toning, looking good, losing weight. But we also have, these stories outside of the fitness world, that more therapeutic in nature, that really just, sometimes bring a tear to our eye.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. Yeah, I mean, I played soccer through college, and maybe diehard listeners would have heard that a few times. But Division I athlete through college, so definitely was big into fitness and had a few injuries that required. We just called it stim, but I guess it's probably the same foundational technology. But that was more just like laying on a whatever, like a table of sorts, and just having the patches applied to like our hamstring, and you just feel it twitch basically. And it was kind of uncomfortable when they turned it up, because it felt like it was like they were kind of like, didn't feel like a burn. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just like tingly feeling getting shot into your muscles.
Sure.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's fascinating, and the efficiency of it sounds like it could be a game changer. Because I mean, let's face facts. The average person isn't like looking to do a super long, tough workout, right? So if this can be effective in 20 minutes, I mean, that's a huge game changer.
Yeah, it is. And it's actually interesting because that's a double-edged sword in the fitness space. Some of our consumers love, our customers love BODY20. I mean, many of them. It's actually the number one reason that we just did a survey. Time is the number one reason that our customers gave as why they love BODY20.
Yeah.
Is that it saves them time. You're working out 20 minutes, 1 time to 2 times per week, in and out in 30 minutes. So just extremely efficient, and you're getting results in that extremely short period of time, which you could do 20 minutes of any other type of exercise, and if we held ourselves to that standard, we are the best and the most efficient way to get a good workout. But we don't hold ourselves to the standard of comparing to 20 minutes of something else. We compare ourselves to doing something else for longer, and we compare extremely favorably to that. There's a study in Europe that did a 20 minutes of EMS compared to 45 minute sessions of HIIT workouts with comparable strength gains and results. And one of the ways that happens is that when that BODY20, I've mentioned earlier in the podcast, you're working out for 20 minutes, your muscles are under tension or stimulation for 10 of those minutes. But in that 10 minutes, it's extremely, you're exerting yourself, significantly. And so it's just very different than traditional fitness.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And it sounds like you're off to a killer start. I mean, we did have, I guess it'll air by the time this episode airs, a company called Ohm Fitness, OHM, if you know them.
Yep.
Which is it's a little different than yours, but and it's way newer. You guys are further along. But yeah, it's fascinating. Kind of some of the best franchises just historically were kind of trends or innovations that started outside of America, and then obviously America's a fantastic market, so it can really take off. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what you guys do. Honestly, I saw you have one in Austin. I think I want to go and just try this out for myself as a fitness enthusiast. That the best way to just see what it's like is to do it. So I'm going to do that.
So I'd make you feel like I'm giving you a deal here by saying you're going to try it completely free, but that's actually our offer for everyone in all of our studios across the country.
Okay.
Is the first session is completely free, and And that's, that's the nature of you're pioneering something, doing something completely new is, we don't want to sell you for 10 minutes on how it works, all this. Just come in the studio, try it. It's completely free, and you'll feel it and you'll see. And we have a, really, I can't share the number, but really impressive, conversion ratio for people that try that free demo and people that buy it. It actually blew my mind when I came in, how high it was, because it's really compelling. You're going to feel gas at the end of it. And then the next couple of days, you'll definitely feel it. And, it's, I think, I'm biased, but, we got a lot of good data behind it.
Yeah.
I think the most efficient and effective workout, you can possibly do.
It's fascinating. Well, all right. If anyone follows me on Twitter, I will do this workout, and we'll see how gassed I am. I'm sure it'll be pretty rough.
I think we need a YouTube of it.
Yeah. Okay. We could do that. We'll see. I'll see what the content team can put together. All right. Well, look, last question here to kind of wrap things up. Have you thought about, fitness franchises can be massive, right? Planet Fitness obviously has been around for a while, and it's a different value prop. It's a big box gym, but, even F45 and Orange Theory, boutique fitness companies, or Orange Theory is private, but valued over $1 billion. F45 already went public, and they have not, the public markets haven't been kind to them from a valuation standpoint.
They've been up and down. Yep.
Yeah. But regardless, the point is most people think the only public franchises are, the big fast food brands like McDonald's and Wendy's and all those guys, but Domino's too. What's your goal here? You've already had a business acquired. Are you kind of settling in for the long term here and seeing what happens, or is there, you got Exponential Fitness, who's big in acquiring brands. So what's the vision?
Sure. So it's nice in franchising to be a little more kind of open and honest about this, because our franchisees, at the end of the day, we're here to make money, and that's what they're here to do, and so we get to talk to them about that, and obviously we're all here, for that purpose, or we happen to do it in a way that changes people's lives and, from a health standpoint, and then in franchising, the franchisees' lives from a financial standpoint. But, for us, the main focus I have as a CEO, and I'll say being a CEO of a franchise brand is a pretty heavy, it's a pretty heavy job, because my investors are not, it's not some hedge fund or VC firm, and it's, it's individual people, and we have some really, successful franchisees, some very wealthy franchisees that are, more successful than us. But it's a lot of people that are investing and trusting us. And so I take that really seriously. So first and foremost, and this is just beautiful alignment here, because what is important to them is the way we drive the most value. But what I think about every day, and then the rest will take care of itself, is we need to provide an incredible investment for our franchisees. And so it costs, $400,000 to $500,000 to open a BODY20. We want to have, our promise to our franchisees is we want to be the best return on that investment in the fitness franchise space. And we think we can do it. And, and that's what I think about every day. And how that connects to your question, and that kind of beautiful alignment here is that drives the most value, in franchising and in a franchise brand. And there's a reason that Orange Theory is so valuable. We have a lot, I think 3 team members from Hand and Stone Massage, which is a really great brand. Yep. 500, 600 locations, they sold, recently for, close to $1 billion. And so, whereas then you have, some other multi-unit franchise brands that have thousands and thousands of units that don't have that valuation. And the difference is, the more successful your franchisees are, the better the unit economics, the more valuable the brand. So that's what we focus on. As far as exit, it's impossible to know, for us, but we're not even close to done. Yeah. And, we think in, point A to point B here, so we've got a long-term vision, of course, for what this can be, and it can expand a lot beyond what we're even doing today. But our short-term vision is getting to 100 units open, which we think we can do close to the end of this year, early next year. And also getting to that kind of, holy land of return on investment for our franchisees, which we think we can get to that industry leading place within this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, I think your head's in the right spot, and that's the beautiful thing about the franchise model is that the incentives really are aligned, right? If the franchisees are doing well, then that means the franchisor is doing well. And yeah, so I'm pumped to see what you guys do, and it's also just exciting to see a boutique fitness, which is a bit of a crowded area in franchising, to see one with a bit of a more differentiated value prop. And, a service that maybe, Orange Theory started kind of the hit trend, at least as I remember it. And obviously now there's a lot more brands out there kind of offering similar workouts, but this is totally different. So, it will be fun to watch you guys grow. Yeah, man, look, this has been a fun conversation. Where can folks who want to follow or discuss, learn more about BODY20 and you, any good places online that you want to point them to?
Sure. So www.body20.com. That's body20. And at BODY20, Facebook, Instagram, I think is the best way.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, folks, we'll plug it in the show notes where you can just find it yourself. But yeah, Greg, thanks again. This was fun to run through.
Great. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.